You're listening to The Bird Bath. This episode of The Bird Bath is brought to you by Ignite Veterinary Solutions, creators of the Veterinary Receptionist Certificate of Excellence, the VRCE. CSR Week is in April. Celebrate your front desk if you want, but if you're serious about performance, elevate it. With more than 1,000 graduates and thousands more enrolled, VRCE is becoming the standard across veterinary medicine. Graduates report greater confidence booking appointments, 82% report higher confidence in financial conversations, and 80% remain in their role, representing a 50% reduction in front desk turnover. More appointments, stronger financial conversations, greater stability. Your front desk drives your revenue. Train it like it matters. This isn't a feel-good training, it's economic performance. Join the movement. Visit vrce.vet and use the coupon code BIRDBATH25 for a special offer for VRCE General Practice, VRCE Specialty and Emergency, and now VRCE in Espanol. Welcome back to the Bird Bath. Each week we scrape the surface of the news you need to know, so let's get into it. Top story this week is Scribe Data. That's right, AI scribes have had their moment of getting surveyed and figuring out what's going on. And I'm not just talking about the Veterinary AI Bracket Challenge, which, yes, we do have a champion. But just last week, and actually right before we recorded this, John Ayers and Adam Wysocki dropped some major data in the AI scribing space. Their companion animal veterinary software guide looked at adoption of AI scribes in veterinary practices across North America. We've got a ton of numbers here and kind of some stuff to peel back and figure out a little bit. Now, if you saw the report on April 1st, it was no joke. Get that April Fool's joke, enjoy that one. But what they were doing, they actually came out this week with an update. Some of the people and a lot of the AI scribing companies said, hey, hold on, wait. You didn't count all the doctors that are using us. You're just looking at the number of practices. And when you put those numbers together and really look at the total number of FTE, full-time equivalent users, you do see quite a shift in some of the data here. So I'm talking a little bit about what was in that first report as well as the updated and clean data here. But the overall story remains the same. In the data and in the survey, they found that 47% of veterinary clinical staff personally use an AI scribe right now. 50% of practices have at least one scribe user on staff. So 50%, listen to that, 50% of practices have at least one scribe user on staff. When you go to corporate practices, it gets even crazier. 66% of corporate practices have an AI scribe adoption. And independent practices are not far behind. They're at 40%. And that's a pretty massive jump here when you think about the fact that, 24 months ago, we were saying AI scribing what? And so now we're seeing 40% of independent practices bringing this on board. It's a massive, massive numbers. And even more so than that, the independent scribes, the scribes that are not the integrated partners inside of PIMS, are really winning the space. Independent scribe vendors commanded, listen to this, 80.5% of the market. That's right. Over 80% of all AI scribe users in North America are utilizing a third-party independent scribe. PIMS embedded scribes accounted for just 8.6%. The next 6 PIMS embedded scribes accounted for just 8.6% of all of the businesses. 8.6 for all of them. The top 4 products by North American market share are ScribbleVet, CoVet, ScribeNote, and VetRec. And all of those, as we said, are independent. No single PIMS native scribe exceeded 1.9% of market share individually. And wildly enough, each of the top 4 independent scribes all outsell all 6 of the PIMS scribes combined. Now, they looked a little bit more into this, and I know I'm saying a lot of numbers and going into this, but they looked deeper into this, and they looked really at what EasyVet, which is owned by IDEX, and Pulse, which is owned by Covetris, what their native, integrated, and complementary, or free, if you like that word better, what their scribes are able to do. On EasyVet, their built-in scribe had only 6.5% of clinical staff utilizing it, while 44.7% of EasyVet users reported utilizing an independent scribe. On Pulse, they captured higher, but not a ton, 13%, while independent scribes brought in over 37% of the users. So massive numbers, double, triple, 8 times in some senses here. And it's these things that we're seeing where one of the big hurdles that many people thought when we were looking at the growth of AI scribes was the PIMs hold the data. What are we going to be able to do? Well, people are saying, hey, they're still able to work. They are the solution and the tool that people are enjoying using. And how do we know that they not only are they choosing to use them with their dollars, but they actually in survey said that they like them better. The top 4 independent scribes were a 5.75 out of 7 on the total satisfaction rating, and they had a less than 1% dissatisfaction rating. Now, unfortunately for the native scribes, they were over a full point less on satisfaction ratings, and they had an 8.1% dissatisfied rating. So there's a 12 times dissatisfaction gap between what the independent scribes are doing and what the PIMS native scribes are doing. These numbers are kind of crazy, and I know I'm beating them up and going around and around and around like this, but it's something that's crazy. It's very cool. It's one of the products that we've seen grow the most rapidly in the time that I've had the opportunity to be in vet med. I remember going into 2020, I was working at Hippo, a PIMS, and my plan for 2020, as we were planning out the year at the end of 2019, was that 2020 was going to be the year of the cloud. We were going to teach everyone what cloud meant and get people to start utilizing cloud software. Well, COVID had other plans for that, but that was what I thought we were going to be able to see by really increasing the demand for cloud computing. And AI scribing has done that in a really meaningful way. Now, one of the standout corporate groups in this was Mission Pet Health. 800 to 900 or more practices. They employ over 2,000 vets, and they adopted ScribeNote as their standard AI scribe. Of the respondents that use ScribeNote, nearly 75% of ScribeNote full-time equivalent users are Mission Pet Health employees. So very interesting there. So the big signal there for a large corporate group taking on a large portion of your mind share as a group. When you look at some of the other numbers, CoVet had the highest mean satisfaction score. ScribbleVet was definitely the largest by both practice count and user numbers for the English-speaking Americas. But when you added in French Canada, things got a little bit closer. ScribbleVet and CoVet were extremely close in their user count. Another interesting point here was that VetRec had the highest average full-time equivalent count per practice because they have quite a few large specialty groups as well as installs at large universities. So really cool numbers. If you haven't checked out the survey, I will be sure to link it in this week's Substack. So make sure to subscribe to that so that you can get the full story there. Now, one thing that we did leave out, sure, some data is great. Yeah, it's fun to run a survey. But did you challenge all of these scribes to fill out a March Madness bracket? Adam, John, where are you guys at? Well, I did it for you. You guys might remember we launched the Veterinary AI Bracket Challenge at the beginning of March Madness, and we had 12 separate scribes, quite a few that were on this list here, and some that opted out, and some that just couldn't get it together in time, but we will have them back next year. But of the Veterinary AI Bracket Challenge, we had some really, really strong competition. We saw companies like Talkatoo rising to the top early on. We saw VetGenie with some big picks pulling out. But ultimately, the AI scribing tool from Otto was able to pull out the big win. They ended up taking the big trophy home by scoring a total of 110 of 192 maximum points. They outscored second place, OpenVet, with a pretty good margin, and VetGenie brought it home in third place. Now, thank you to everyone that participated, and I gotta give a shout out to the tool from Prim Veterinary. We did a bird bath submission on that. We dove into the tool and really got it to play nice. And the fun thing that Prim Veterinary did was it said, hey, I don't do this. So don't ask me to. And I said, come on, do it. It'll be fun. And by pushing it back, it was able to then say, I'm not going to tell you who's going to win based on basketball knowledge because I don't have that. But what I can tell you is what schools have vet schools, which animal would beat another animal in a fight, which animal is stronger, which animal is bigger. And they're actually the only company that had a team make it all the way to the championship game. So Prim Veterinary ended up, sadly, in dead last, but had UConn pulled out the win, which they lost by about 6 points to Michigan, spoiler alert if you didn't watch the game last night, but had Prim Veterinary done that, they would have catapulted themselves to 4th place by just picking based on who has a vet school and which animal would win in a fight. So I thought that was really fun, and thank you to everyone that took the time to participate in that. Again, with some more data points here, Spot Pet Insurance released their 2026 Pet Parent Perspective Survey. Wow, I didn't realize how many P's were in that story. They surveyed 4,100 pet owners in February, and the data goes beyond, oh my gosh, things are so expensive, and they really discussed where the vet bills are influencing how people are making decisions about their lives. 21% of pet owners said that $500 is where a vet bill becomes impossible to pay. Now, they didn't say it was hard. They said that it was impossible to pay a vet bill over $500. And 32% of respondents said that they hit that wall at $2,500. Now, thinking back to January of this year, where PetSmart's charity and Gallup put out their data, 71% of people declined or skipped care, citing affordability or perceived value when they were looking at that. So the data's lining up here. And if you're thinking, if you're listening to this and you said $500, I would pay it, $2,500, I would pay it. Well, even at $90,000 of earnings or beyond, 33% of households said that they felt that their cost of veterinary care was too expensive. Now, back to the Spot Pet Insurance data, they said only 18% can cover a big bill without cutting their budget. And 27% of them said that they would experience months of lifestyle changes or debt after an unexpected bill of $500 or up to $2,500. People cut travel, they cancel entertainment subscriptions, and 32% even said that they prioritize pet procedures over their own healthcare. Now, when we talk about what this means for people and where they're living their lives, 15% of respondents passed up promotions or job opportunities because in-office requirements conflicted with pet care needs. Now, take it back to what we were talking about there, how I thought 2020 would be the year of the cloud. Well, we saw a lot of people in 2020 sort of put us on this roller coaster of growth in the space when people got pets, brought them home, and got very used to them sitting right next to them. Now, some of those pets might not have been puppies, and some of them might be starting to age and get older and need more care than what we've seen. And that's where we're starting to see some of this conflict. Now, as businesses are starting to see employees and asking employees to get back into the office, you're starting to see some older and aging pets or pets, and people are used to sitting at home next to their pets. And maybe that just isn't what's making sense for them. The scary part medically here is that 13% of respondents are using human medication on their pets to save money because they said the veterinary option was too expensive. 12% are turning to unverified internet remedies. I wanted to find some of these, but they didn't have exact data on what those remedies were. And even 16% said they would travel anywhere for cheaper procedures. Now, that doesn't surprise me because I have been getting nonstop stories about a new company called MexiVet Express, which is a company out of San Diego, which will come, pick your dog up or your pet up at your home, bring them across the border to Tijuana, where they have a team of doctors that they work with at clinics across the Tijuana area, and they will actually do the medical procedures. Someone from their company, from MexiVet Express, will actually stay with your pet, care for them, take care of them, and then bring them back home to you as a way to reduce the cost of veterinary care. So when I was reading more about that, they had stories about people traveling across the country to then have their dog brought across the border for less expensive care. So the 16% of people traveling anywhere for cheaper procedures does not surprise me. It's definitely something that we're starting to see more of. And when we're thinking about this, let's think about what are things we can do. People are using human medications to save money. Where are they getting the pricing for their veterinary medications? That's something to think about. Where are they finding these internet remedies? We just hit on AI scribing, but are people going to Chat GPT or going to Claude or going to, whatever quickly spun up AI slop is hitting the internet and allowing that to be where they get their recommendations of care? Where's the vet channel in that? So there's a lot of things from this data that I thought was extremely important. We didn't dive into a mountain of stories this week, but we did dive into stories that I think were very, very important. I'm going to dig deeper into all of these over the next few weeks here, and I definitely want you guys to check out my Substack so that you can get links to these reports. I think especially the report that John and Adam put out was spectacular and definitely something people should be keeping their eyes on. And if you want more of these and other stories, you can join us, like I said, by subscribing to our Substack. There's always a link in the bio. And don't miss out on any episodes by subscribing and rating the show. For the Bird Bath, I'm Ryan Leach. See you next week.